Hello and welcome to James Hennon on YouTube. Today I've decided to talk about a tip that I came across from a fellow YouTuber called John Ballantree. And this tip I think is absolutely brilliant and a great way to start a reading for a person you're reading for, whether they've got a question or whether they don't have a question. I just think it's a great way to start the reading. It gives you, the reader, a good chance to have a look at what the issue might be and to start getting ideas before you start turning the cards over. As I say, this is probably even more helpful when a person or client comes to you for a reading and they don't have a specific question. They just say, I just want to know what I need to know, sort of thing, or I want a general reading. And this tip is basically to get them to pick a number between 1 and 22. Now, if the person you're reading for understands the major arcana, it doesn't matter because they're going to be forced to pick a number, so that number will be relevant and they won't be conscious of everything that's going to come out of the card, because obviously you have a unique way of delivering that message. But by picking a number between 1 and 22, what you're giving yourself is one major card that can then be associated with the querient at that time, what they've come for the reading for. So if they've come and they don't have a question and they say, number 4, say for instance, you'd say to them, well, you'd start talking about and describing the Emperor to them. So how you do this is up to you. Obviously, there's no right and wrong ways of how you would explain this card. Some people, obviously, the technique is they look at the card, they try to see something that might jump out at them that they could start telling the querent about. So, for instance, if we were looking at the Emperor, we could say that he looks quite stern, he looks quite rigid, but he looks quite authoritative. So maybe you need to start organising things, be a bit more authoritative in your plans and actions and that sort of thing. Or maybe you could see that the client really does need to take control of a situation. Perhaps they're not as organised, perhaps everything's a bit chaotic and they need to be more organised. Or it could be that you feel that this gentleman here is an authority figure, so maybe they've got to deal with an authority figure. Maybe something has to be resolved. But it would give you a good standpoint of how you could then start the reading. For instance, if the question was about wanting to sort of take action, what do I do, sort of thing? Do I take action? Do I make these changes? Do I take action or do I not take action? And say, for instance, the client then gave you card number 12, the Hangman. You could then start talking about how you think this would be beneficial to them. Maybe you could see that you could start explaining that perhaps they're in a position where they're not moving at the moment, but they've got a good understanding that by waiting and pausing and reflecting carefully, that they could gain the true perspective through patience, and they'd be able to know how to act or take the best action. Or maybe the fact is they are aware of what's going on and they need to make a sacrifice. But again, it's how you would interpret the card and what things jump out of the card. But this general thing will give you, as I said, gives you foundation for the reading. So if somebody comes to you and wants to know about their love life and you get the Lovers, then you're pretty much looking at, well, what choices do this person have to make? Or if they come to you and they want a marriage reading on their marriage, obviously, and then they pull the Moon, it could mean that perhaps things are uncertain at the moment, unclear. So you know straight away what you're dealing with. So you know that there might be some sort of an uncomfortable situation going on, and they might be unclear, they might be uncertain, they might be a bit frightened or anxious about their marriage or something like that. But it gives you the framework, so you know roughly where you're going with this. You know things aren't certain. Obviously, if somebody comes to you for a reading, they want to know something. So if it's a marriage, it could be, but you don't assume, obviously, but it could be a problem or an issue that needs to be addressed. So by putting a major arcana number, a card, to the number they've picked, selected, gives you the framework for the reading. Now, another little tip that you can use as well, especially if the person isn't present. So if you've got a friend that rings you up and says, I would, I'm in a bit of a state, I'd love a reading. I want to know about my husband or my wife, or depending on what gender your friend is. You could say to them, just give us a number between 1 and 22, first of all, and they'll pick a number. And then you can say to them, right, I'm going to lay a few cards out. If you could just give us a number, say between 22 and 100, then that gives you a number for the amount of shuffles you want to do. Now, the tip here is that once you've established the framework of the problem with the first number, the second number, say for instance it's 45 or something, you do the 45 shuffle and then lay out the spread whichever you want to lay out, bearing in mind the first number is an influence as well to help look at the spread deeply. You can then also use the number of shuffles as an additional card to give you even more guidance. So for instance, if it was 45, if you add 4 and 5 together, you get 9. So you may get the Hermit. And it's quite funny sometimes when you get 2 cards, because you might work out that the number, you might have picked 18 to start with, or he might have picked 18. Then they might have given you 45, which you've added together is the Hermit. So you might start to see that this person's 2 major things, if they're looking into something that they're not certain about, the 2 major cards could quickly give you a very good framework or idea of how they're going to sort of progress, how to best progress from here, and how to best take on, help them influence their decisions, so to speak. And it will make the reading a lot clearer. And this gives really good and accurate results. So it's just something worth bearing in mind if you're doing readings for people, whether they're friends, family, or clients that are not present. If you're doing it over the phone just to help them, or if you're doing email readings, you can apply this to email readings, video call readings, telephone readings, that sort of thing. And it just gives you that, because the client has picked them out of shuffle, so they're theoretically picking the cards, which is the good thing. And they've also given you the number, which gives you they're not consciously picking it, they're subconsciously picking it or unconsciously picking the numbers, which is going to give you the guidance that they need. And this is a very accurate tip to use. And of course you can use this, as I say before, any spread you use, whether you're just doing a 3-card past, present, future, or strengths, weaknesses and opportunities spread over 3 cards, or whether you're doing a horseshoe spread or a Celtic cross or a Romany spread or a horoscope spread. It doesn't really matter. It just gives you that little bit of foundation to build the reading on, so you know what you're talking about and you've got a heads up on what you're going to talk to the client about. And also, obviously, by using a second number between 22 and 100, you can get the shuffles, so you know how many times to shuffle the cards. If you wanted to go a step further, you could then split the pack into 3 and then tell them to pick a number, 1, 2 or 3, or A, B, C, and then you can actually pick the exact pile if you wanted to. That's another little tip you could use. I do sometimes, but in most cases I just trust my intuition, because I've got the framework from the major card to start with, and with the shuffles I've got the additional number I can use, as well as the shuffle number I can use, add those 2 numbers together to get another major card to give a bit more information. And then I can associate that with the card that I turn over on the top of the 3 piles. So whichever card seems to make most sense intuitively with what they've asked about and what numbers they've given me, we can then start to do the reading, and that will give you an absolutely great head start. And you'll find that your readings will get a lot more accurate. And this is a tip that you can use as a beginner, but more importantly, it can be used by an improver or a professional. It doesn't matter. It's just giving you that heads up. It's just a lovely little tip. And as I said, I got the tip from John Ballantyre, so please do go over and check his channel on YouTube. John Ballantyre is very good, established Scottish tarot reader and teacher. Been doing it for many, many years. And he's very wise on what he does, so and very good at what he does. So it's well worth checking out. But that's just a little tip. Pick a number, as I say, between 1 and 22. Give you the major card. You can start talking about that card before the reading. And as I said to you, when you look at the card. You can just say to yourself, well, the Hermit, that means solitude, that means looking into something. Or you can forget the meaning and just see if something jumps out at you, like a lantern. Perhaps they need more light on the subject, or perhaps looking at his support stave there, that he needs more support. Maybe, something else. But that's what makes it unique. There's no right and wrong ways of doing this. It's just your approach. But it's a lovely little tip. I highly recommend it. And see what you think. If you've enjoyed the video, please give us a thumbs up. Feel free to drop a comment below in the comment section of how you think this might help you, or what you think of it. Play around with it. Come back and drop a comment if you think it's helped you. And don't forget to subscribe to James Hennon on YouTube. Until the next time, take care and be safe. Bye-bye.